All right, so hello everyone. Today we have a student from the University of California Berkeley. Her name is Emily. And Emily, can you go ahead and please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Emily Chang, and I'm a student at UC Berkeley. My major that I was declared in is Nutritional Sciences with a specialized track in physiology and metabolism. I'm also currently planning a minor in microbial biology as well. Um, I am a pre-med student, and I've been planning my coursework in like in that track as well.
All right, awesome. So obviously, I think nutritional sciences. That's actually a really interesting major. It's not something that a lot of schools will offer that specific name for. So
Yeah.
why did you decide to go into that specific major?
I actually chose that major because like I knew I was going to be a pre-med student since I was like very little.
Mhm.
And I was doing my college research. So I was like, hey, this major has it hits all of these pre-med requirements. So I can simultaneously satisfy my pre-med requirements and also my major requirements. It's a win-win.
Right, awesome. And would you say the stuff that you studied in high school maybe led up to your interest in going into science as well, or was it just something like I guess the interest of being a doctor in general?
Well, as for interest, I think that this interest developed when I was very, very little. So it's like my dad is the doctor himself. So
Okay.
and my uncles and and then my sister, she's also a pre-med student. So some of these factors have definitely influenced my decision. But I find myself more into the sciences than the humanities.
All right, awesome. Now I guess going a little bit away from the major, focusing a lot more on UC Berkeley. I guess first and foremost, why UC Berkeley? Out of all the colleges you probably could have attended, why did you settle for this one?
Well, actually, I'm not gonna lie. I chose Berkeley because it was the best school that I got into. So, like I was like, hey, you get a good undergrad, you get like a really, really good education, so you'll have a more of a little base, like you develop your base knowledge better for going into med school than if I went to, I don't know, like another college.
Okay,
It's for
awesome.
pure academic reasons.
Okay, yeah, no, for sure, that definitely makes sense. I think a lot of students when they're going into undergraduate, they consider the academic abilities, or the resources that the school offers. But I think another thing to mention is the fact that UC Berkeley is a public university. It's a lot different than a private university. It's a lot larger. Did the idea of Berkeley being a public school have any impact on your decision to go there?
Um, Well, I was also concerned about the financial aspect when choosing a college because my sister, well, we over we're both in college for 1 year. Like we have a little overlap.
Hmm.
So it might cause a financial strain for my parents. So UC Berkeley, even though it is public and it is bigger, it's also cheaper.
Yeah.
And also their research, the departments, it's really, really developed and really, really good there.
Hmm.
So it also offers a lot of opportunities that you probably can't get in private schools or maybe to a lesser extent.
Hmm. Yeah, no, for
Also
sure.
it's close to home. It's really close to home for me.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I'm an hour away.
yeah, that's definitely good. I mean, you definitely mentioned that the research abilities of Berkeley, and yeah, definitely for being, I mean, just the UC system in general, they're very strong in the STEM field, so they do have a lot of research opportunities, and those resources for you to grow, whether you're pre-med or something in those fields. And yeah, I definitely think that tuition is definitely something to consider too. And Berkeley's still one of the top schools in the entire nation, and even though it's a public school, it is pretty up there. So yeah, I definitely think that overall, at least for you were able to get like different aspects to their full extent. So
Yeah.
I guess going a year back to back in senior year when we were applying to colleges. I guess first and foremost, first off, if you could summarize, how did you feel about the entire college application process? Like, maybe from starting from freshman year or just in general, how did it feel for you?
I thought it was really long and really tedious. It definitely felt really, really over the top at points, and especially the waiting in February, January, February, when you're done with apps and you're just waiting for decisions to come out. It can be very, very stressful. And well, coming from an Asian family, especially, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Asia. So there is this sort of, like expectation that families put on you to get into a very good college in the US.
Yeah.
And that definitely builds up from freshman year onwards. So for people like me, like it might be like a little bit more stressful than other people, but you learn to deal with it.
Okay. And when you mentioned, it's definitely true. I mean, obviously growing up for me too in an Asian American household,
Yeah.
there's a bit of that pressure. It's not any lie when we say that Asian Americans do have pressure from family or siblings to get into a good college, get good grades, and all that stuff. Um,
Hmm.
well, I guess aside from like grades and having to study for test scores or whatnot, when would you say you started really looking into colleges, like researching for schools, like really diving into the application process?
Hmm. I actually started doing research really, really early, like in like sophomore year, like second semester sophomore year. Because well, my sister had just finished applying to college then, and she gave me a lot of pointers. So I was like, hey, like might as well start early, and it's going to take a lot of stress off later on, and I'm free, so why not? So I did that in sophomore year, and I actually had my list like semi ready at the end of like junior year. So I had a lot of it down beforehand, and then like I just narrowed it down in the beginning of June and then started writing then. Yeah.
Okay. And like you mentioned, you said obviously your sister told you to start early because it helps alleviate things when you get to senior year. And would you agree
Yeah.
that, starting early did help you once you got to senior year or even junior year when, academics start getting kicked up to high gear?
Yes, I definitely agree that people should start early
Mhm.
because like I've seen so many friends that, like 10 minutes before the deadline they're still writing the essay.
Yeah.
And that just causes so much unnecessary stress. Like why would you do this to yourself? But like it can also be like very overwhelming, especially when you start like years before you're supposed to actually start. So it's a very delicate balance, but I still think it's worth it to start early. Just don't put like too much stress on yourself in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think, obviously starting early is great because you get to time management and you get to balance it out over a longer period of time. Especially, if you just start strictly on senior year, you're managing extracurriculars, school, college apps, and other personal issues as well. So it gets
Yeah.
pretty overwhelming. It can be kind of depressing for a lot of students to go through all of that. Um, I like, one thing you mentioned was that obviously you got a lot of information from your sister because it's a 1 year overlap you mentioned. So you do have someone that's like kind of almost an upperclassman who can tell you about information. But I would say, other than like your sister, what was your main source of getting information or research about the entire college application process? Did your school provide you resources? Did you just use the internet, or was it solely just like family members? So I guess for you, what was your best way of finding the information for it?
Okay, well, first I'd like to clarify something. My sister is actually 3 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had 1 year of overlap like in college when we're both
Okay.
in college. And well, like most of my information came from my sister actually.
Mhm.
Because like my parents came from Asia, so they have like no knowledge of whatever the application process is for American colleges. So my sister told me some things and like I did my own research basically, like through the internet and like our high schools have those like admission days where like the officer comes to like talk with you. Yeah. Like I didn't go to any of those.
Okay. Did
Yeah, I didn't go to any of those. So like I was just like bawling basically.
wait, would you have if you could have gone back and um done it again, would you have gone to those meetings, or would you just have just
Nope.
kept it, or you would just kept
Nope.
it?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
okay, like no shade, but I still feel like those meetings tell you nothing about the school. Well, like it might tell you some very, very basic facts, such as, how many students go to the school or what's like the student teacher ratio, but ultimately that doesn't count for anything.
Yeah.
Like
No,
at least in my point of view. So like I want to change what I, went through in my first semester senior year.
okay, yeah, no, I mean that definitely makes sense. I mean, a lot of times those information sessions are stuff that you can easily get, like we mentioned, in a simple Google search. So I guess in specific, because you didn't want to get those information that those college representatives were giving, what were the pieces of information that you were trying to research and trying to understand?
I was looking more into like the courses they offer and also like the research department and what kind of research is available there.
Mhm.
Like that's not something that you can very easily get from the admissions officer, especially those the ones that come to your school, because it's more of like a general pitch. But I want to know like about a specific major, about a specific type of research, and like it's a very tiny thing that I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that, especially since those college admission officers, they just kind of come and talk about like a general holistic, and especially when you're a student, like you said for yourself, going into STEM and wanting to be pre-med, those officers aren't going to spend those like time periods to like tell you about their programs. They're just going to talk about the school in general. But yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
agree with you on that one. I would guess, just looking back, just to, I guess, summarize the entire college application part, if you could have gone back and redid the entire thing, what would you have changed, if anything?
I would probably like write like a different Common App essay.
Hmm,
Like
okay.
to be perfectly honest, I was like reading it the other day and it was really cringy.
Yeah, I was.
It was really cringy. Like you think you just wrote some like very powerful essay or something, but then like 1 year later, a year and a half later, you look back and you're like, oh God, why did I write this?
Yeah, no, I
You know?
definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree with you with that. Actually, it's funny because, like you mentioned, actually a couple of days ago, I don't know what reason. I think I was talking to someone who was applying to college, and I was looking back at my own essays too, and they were pretty cringy. Like a lot of times, I feel like I was writing something that colleges wanted to hear rather than what I wanted to say. So they can be, yeah. So I think reading back, after a whole year, it's kind of, yeah, you get a lot really super cringy about it. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I mean, your perspective changed, right?
yeah, exactly. I think just like the mindset we were in senior year is obviously a lot different than the mindset we're in now that we've actually gone through a year of college and seen what it's actually like. So you're kind of like, okay, it was totally different. That's why I think we consider it to be so, yeah, it's just like not fun to read. All right, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So I guess moving out from the college application and going back to talking about college and Berkeley in general. So you mentioned obviously that you're pretty local to Berkeley, so it's not like the farthest distance to get to. But I would say like, what was something that you got to do in college that you weren't able to do in high school, or maybe even the hometown of wherever you're living?
Well, I was next to Stanford, so it's, still surrounded by a college, but not that much. Because I'm like not in like the heart, but like on the, outside
Yeah.
areas. But in terms of what I got to do in college, I feel like, hmm, well, I do certainly have a lot more freedom in college.
Yes.
And I got to like manage my own time better. So especially since I get to plan my own schedule, I get to like decide when I eat, when I sleep, when I wake up, and all those sorts of things that I didn't really get to do in high school. Because like high school classes, they start at 8:30 and you end at like 3,
Yeah, pretty much just a
right?
standard schedule.
Yeah. It's a very set schedule. So you don't really learn how to manage your own time, but in college I got to do that. It's
Yeah, that's
great.
awesome. Mhm.
Yeah.
Would you say, obviously, when students are given so much liberty, like I guess sometimes we kind of abuse it. Like we're just like, oh, I can just sleep into this class, or I can just do this, this, and this. Would you say it was a bit of a challenge adjusting to that new, like I guess, larger freedom, or were you able to learn a lot faster than you thought?
I actually didn't really have much trouble transitioning to a space where I have more freedom over my time.
Mhm.
Like I know there are like some days where I'm just like, I don't want to go to my 8 a.m. class. I want to like sleep in until like 10, 11,
Mhm.
and like definitely tempted to ditch class. But once I think about like how much money I'm paying for school
Mhm.
and how much like I'm gonna lose if I don't go to class, I'm just like, oh, let's go to class. We're gonna learn today. We're gonna learn something new. Yeah.
Yeah, so like yeah, definitely true. I mean, there's a lot of like I guess kind of like external motivators that kind of get you to go. Like, if you yourself don't want to like, you have that like, oh, I don't want to go to this 8 a.m. Like, why did I sign up for this early? Like, you do have those other things that are on the side that are telling you, oh, but you need to go because you paid for it. You need to do well on the test, blah blah blah. So yeah, I definitely think that's a great thing to have mentioned. So one thing that I actually get a lot of like high schoolers that ask me or a couple of my friends is they ask us about their opinion on Berkeley because Berkeley is known to be, a very powerful school and like they're really good at their academics. But at the same time, a lot of students worry that it's super challenging and super difficult. So in your opinion, and it's just however you personally feel about it, do you think Berkeley is a hard school?
Well, okay, like I do say that Berkeley has a reputation for being academically cutthroat,
Hmm.
but Berkeley can also be very fun and very relaxing at the same time,
Hmm.
depending on who you surround yourself with. Like, yes, Berkeley is a hard school, but also no, it's not. You have to find your own balance between work and play. So you get the maximum amount of both.
Hmm.
Like, I personally can manage my time really well. So I don't find myself running out of time to do assignments. So I'm gonna lean a little bit more on like a little bit to the yes side, but also like largely like in the middle. Like it's manageable. It's like you can get used to it very very quickly,
Hmm.
and you will definitely grow a lot there. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yes, it's hard, but also it's a manageable kind of hard.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think it's honestly the same with any school, not just Berkeley. I mean, just regardless of what school you go to, um, it's going to be a challenge because you're going from high school to college. You could have went to like a super easy high school and then go into a really challenging college. But like you mentioned, it's the people that you surround yourself with, how you're managing your time, and it will be rough for some students in the first couple of weeks and maybe a whole semester. But I think yeah, it's true that we do get used to it and eventually find our own rhythm once we get into college. And eventually things get a lot easier, or how to like play the system a lot better. Yeah. So I guess like you mentioned, you talked about like finding friends or like people to hang out with. So what would you say was like your kind of like support system in college? Did you still like keep in touch with family? Did you just really find new friends, or maybe some clubs that had people of similar interests? So like I guess what was your support during college?
I largely kept in touch with my sister more, and also like some friends from like high school.
Hmm.
And like my support group largely consisted of the friends that I made there.
Hmm.
Because like it's really easy to make friends in college, especially because everybody is new and everybody wants to make friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're like surrounded by a lot of people who are exactly like you and are exactly in the same position as you. So like you can like bond over that. So support group like friends, family, and friends from high school to a certain extent. Like I don't
Mhm.
really rely on them much. And also I met my boyfriend in college, so that's part of my support group as well.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree with you because like we try so much to actually keep in touch with high school friends, but I realize going into college, it's become a lot more distant than how it used to be back
Yeah.
in high school. But there are occasional days where like you kind of remember them in the middle of the class, like, oh, I should text them because I haven't heard from them in a while. But yeah, I definitely think that's true. I guess going a little bit away from academics and kind of like personal lifestyle. I guess more towards like extracurriculars. So like, what are some extracurriculars you're participating in Berkeley? And if you want to like expand on one or two of them, you can go ahead and feel free to do that.
Extracurriculars. I'm involved in a it's kind of like a patient support program at UCSF.
Hmm.
I am badged as an employee there, so technically
Okay.
like a student intern slash employee at UCSF,
Hmm.
and I go there every week for half a day. Yeah,
Okay. And
and
what do you do in that? Yeah.
so it's it's like it's it's a patient support program, right? So we reach out to the patients that go to the UCSF hospitals for treatment,
Mhm.
and we have scribes in our program who can help with the doctor consultations and like treatment consultations and all of that. Because like we understand that it's really hard for patients to go into a doctor's appointment and get all the information that they can understand out of it. So it might be helpful. Like we think it will be very helpful for somebody who can take notes and help the patients brainstorm their questions for their doctors or clarifying questions before they have their appointment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually think it's a real cool program, especially since it's something that's not, I guess, on the Berkeley campus, like you mentioned, it's at UC San Francisco, which, it's not too far off from Berkeley anyways. It's not like a terrible drive away. But yeah, I definitely think that's, it's actually really cool that you're participating in that. Is there any extracurriculars in particular you have that's on the Berkeley campus itself or within that area?
I was involved in a volunteering. It's a volunteering club. It's called Project Smile.
Hmm.
Like I unfortunately had to like pause for a little bit because I didn't have the schedule space. Like all the times that volunteering was scheduled at, I had class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had to stop for a semester, but I'm hopefully going to rejoin next semester.
Mhm.
It's a mentorship program with the local middle schoolers.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a little
Yeah.
club.
Yeah, and would you say obviously finding those extracurriculars is something that you're both passionate about, but also something that you can do like on your own time for fun or actually being able to relax away from academics?
Oh yeah, I think hanging out with middle schoolers was great. It's definitely very like stress relieving, especially since you meet somebody so much younger than you, and they also like look at everything differently. So it's actually pretty interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely think that's actually a good experience to work with like people younger than you and get that volunteer experience. I think, for me myself, I was also volunteering at a couple schools and tutoring some students within the LA area about it. And I actually enjoyed because, like you mentioned, I think having that whole new perspective, because it's been such a long time since we've been in middle school and like elementary school. So like seeing them be able to like have fun and like the way that they treat everything, it's actually really refreshing. Like I sometimes wonder if I had that same kind of mindset in life when I was their age. So
I
yeah, I
know,
think that
right?
yeah, it's like it's such a long time ago. I think it's a really good experience that at least everyone should try at least once throughout college. Just having that age discrepancy, but being able to see two different viewpoints on life. And yeah, so I guess so. Just to wrap up the entire video, um, if you could give advice to high school students, whether that be about college application, the college lifestyle, or just life in general, what would you tell them?
I think I would definitely tell you to start early, and even if you think you have time, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't have time. So start early and plan out an exact schedule of what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Because I that helped me a lot when I was applying for college. I had this like giant Google Sheets document labeled full of my like extracurriculars and how many hours I had and what schools I was applying to and all like the useful information that I had. Everything in one giant Google Sheet.
Hmm.
So plan yourself out, organize everything. And also like I think I would also say that well take it kind of easy, because I feel like colleges want to know who you are and they don't necessarily want to know what you think, like what you think they want to know.
Hmm.
So like they want to hear something coming from your mouth, from your voice, like in your voice. And they just don't want to hear some like random crap about, what a program is like or how many students they have. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that was no, that was definitely great advice. Like it's kind of like what you mentioned earlier when we were reflecting back on our own personal statements that it was kind of like not the best because either we had a totally different mindset or we just kind of wrote something that we wanted the college to hear, like what kind of student we were. And yeah, I think it's another good point to mention. Like if you have a chance to voice yourself, just voice like literally what's your personality and like what's your kind of work ethics rather than talking about like obviously don't mention like oh this school is great. It has this, this, and this. Because schools like Berkeley would already know what their programs are like. You don't need to retell them.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't have to retell them what they already know. You just have to tell them something they don't know about you. But yeah, no, obviously, like, thank you so much for obviously like coming out to this video. We definitely appreciate you spending the time to give out a lot of great information. And we hope that everyone that's watching this does get a lot of value from it. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope that this really helps too.
Hmm.
And I also would like to mention that they shouldn't be afraid to show like your flaws on paper.
Hmm.
That's one thing that I wanted to add to
Yeah.
what I said before.
That's awesome. And no, that's definitely a true statement. There are times where we can be vulnerable. Not everyone's perfect, but I think it's something to definitely keep in mind and to, reflect on it, especially during high school, because once college hits, you're gonna start realizing that those things are true. But yeah,
Yeah,
other
that's
than that,
great.
yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.